Okay, so my name is Yair Fecher. I'm the founder and CEO of Genufeed. And first, I'd like to thank Piero, Giuseppe, and Marco for inviting me to present in this wonderful event. So Genufeed is an aquafeed Israeli startup, and we see enormous potential in both the aquaculture industry, which is very fast growing, and the insect farming industry, rapidly growing as well. But we have a very unique approach as for how to use insects as fish feed. So first, I want to start with a personal story. About 3 years ago, I was working on a project in the country of Georgia, and the project was about setting up a fish feed extrusion facility. So Georgia and its neighboring countries, Armenia and Azerbaijan, have an abundance of clean freshwater resources, which are ideal for farming of high-value species like sturgeon and rainbow trout. And also, the country of Georgia can definitely benefit from the creation of more jobs, but unfortunately, this huge potential is not being realized. So why is this potential for a thriving aquaculture industry not being realized? The reason is that in the entire region, there aren't any fish feed extrusion facilities. So the fish farmers in Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan are forced to buy expensive imported feed. And they get the feed through a long and expensive logistics supply chain. And this fact severely harms their competitiveness. And that's because, as you know, feed makes more than 60% of the cost to produce fish. And why aren't there any extrusion facilities in Georgia? So as it turns out, the economic break-even point for operating a fish feed extrusion facility is around 20,000 metric tons per year. And at the current state of the aquaculture industry in Georgia, this sales figure is simply not attainable. So the aquaculture industry in Georgia is small because there's no extruder. And in the same time, there's no extruder because the local aquaculture industry is too small. And on top of that, another challenge that we faced was how to secure the supply of the raw materials for the production of fish feed. So in about the same time, I became aware of the fast-growing insect protein industry. I read a lot about the potential of insect protein to replace fish meal in aquafeed. But the current challenge is that insect meal is more expensive than fish meal. And in addition, it needs further processing into fish feed pellets through extrusion, which is capital intensive, and as I mentioned, requires a high sales threshold to reach the economic break-even point. Okay, so let's take a look at the standard approach to insect-based fish feed. So after harvesting, the larva is dried and stored. And when it's time to process it, the larva is heated again. Then it is processed and separated into oil and protein cake. And the protein cake is then crushed into insect meal. We saw this process in several previous presentations. Now, one of the challenges in the industry is how to utilize the oil. And the feedback that I'm getting from insect farmers is that they usually get a very low price for the fat, somewhere around the price of low-cost vegetable oil. So after we have produced the insect meal, in order to produce fish feed, we need to go through the extrusion process. And that includes raw material dosing, micronutrients dosing, grinding, mixing, conditioning, extrusion, drying, cooling, and vacuum coating in fat. So that's a very long and capital intensive process. But when you think about it, artificial extruded feed pellets actually imitate the natural feed of fish. And in the case of carnivorous fish and crustaceans, this would often be insects or other invertebrates. So now that the technology to farm insects on a mass commercial scale exists, as we saw in previous presentations, we can actually use nature's original fish feed. So why can't we simply feed fish with black soldier fly larvae as it is? So the answer is that there are quite a few technical challenges that I will discuss later, but the most important one is the nutritional composition. So the table that you see shows the nutritional requirements for Atlantic salmon. And black soldier fly larva has an excellent amino acid profile, but still certain amino acids such as lysine and methionine are below the required quantity. And in addition, the omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, are essential for fish, but are not present in BSF larvae unless they are being supplemented. Not only that, we must ensure that the fish get each of the items in this entire list of vitamins and minerals. And these are required for healthy and fast-growing fish. And furthermore, often we need to supplement fish feed with additional functional materials such as astaxanthin, which is a natural antioxidant that gives salmon its beautiful color. So how do we do all that? Our solution is all about going back to the origin. We use the entire body of the insects and we optimize the nutritional values of the insects so that they contain exactly what the fish need. We do that by enriching and encapsulating the entire larvae. Here's the actual procedure. So the dry larvae, whole or chopped, go through a one-stage enrichment and encapsulation process. The enriched larvae can then be fed directly to fish, a much simpler and cheaper process. Now, in addition to having to fine-tune the nutritional composition of the larvae, there were many more challenges that we had to solve. So first, we had to make sure that the feed is palatable for the fish and that they keep liking it and eating it over time. Second, we had to ensure that the enrichment and encapsulation materials are water resistant so they don't leach into the water and that the fish consume the larvae with all the materials that we added to it. And another important technical aspect is manipulating the relative weights of the enriched larvae so they float or sink depending on the feeding habits of the fish or crustaceans that we intend to feed. Some more technical challenges that we solved were combining both water-soluble and fat-soluble materials in the same formulation and keeping it stable, as well as the shelf life as a product is very important. We also had to protect the EPA and DHA and other fatty acids from oxidation. In addition, we wanted to simplify the application process on the larvae so it is not too complicated and does not require expensive equipment. And also, we wanted to make the materials highly concentrated so that we don't have to ship bulky materials to insect farmers around the world. So how does our product perform? So what you see are the results of a recent feed trial we conducted with rainbow trout. On the y-axis, you can see the final weight of the fish in each treatment group. The control group consisted of fish fed with a top quality commercial fish feed, which is represented in a red bar. The blue bar represents a treatment group of fish that were fed natural, non-enriched BSF larvae. And the green bar shows that fish fed with Genufeed grew faster and gained more weight on less feed. This has huge implications for the profitability of the fish farmers as we can substantially cut their feed expenses. So which markets are we targeting first? So similarly to grass-fed beef and free-range chickens and eggs, we satisfy a market need for fish fed with their natural need, which is less processed, less artificial, and produced locally. Another very attractive market is the developing countries market. So as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation with the case of Georgia, the development of an aquaculture industry is inhibited in countries and regions in the world where there aren't any feed extrusion facilities. So we offer a great solution for that problem, a solution that enables the modular and local production of complete fish feed based on local organic waste. So what's our business model? We did secure our intellectual property through patent applications, but we are not going to keep the technology to ourselves. We will distribute our enrichment substances to the rapidly growing market of insect farmers and help them derive more value and profits from their harvested larvae. So we already started working with several insect farming companies, and we welcome more collaborations, so please get in touch with us. And we are also gearing up for a capital raise round, so investors who are interested, please contact us as well. Thank you very much.